In today's video, I'm going to show you how I color grade motorsport videos in DaVinci Resolve. Let's get to it. So this example is from some footage that I filmed at Laguna Seca a few summers back. And the first thing I want to talk about is my node structure. On the left side is where I do my primary grade, and on the right side is where I'm going to be doing my secondary grade. First node is a color space transform, and this puts it into DaVinci wide gamut. So I'm taking my camera settings, which is shot on a Fuji camera. My input color space is Rec 2020. Yours might be Rec 709. My input gamma is Fuji F-Log. For my output color space, I have DaVinci wide gamut. And for my output gamma, I have DaVinci intermediate. And for my output color space transform, I'm taking that DaVinci wide gamut and outputting it to Rec 709, with the output gamma being gamma 2.4. The next node that I want to talk about is my Kodak LUT. So this is actually not the film look LUT that comes bundled with DaVinci Resolve. This is one that was made by Colin Kelly. And I like this one a lot more because it's designed for DaVinci wide gamut rather than Rec 709. And because sometimes I find that LUTs can honestly just kind of wreck your footage sometimes if you don't do it right. And they just can sometimes just make things look a little funky, but I really like the way he has these set up and they work pretty good. I only have it set to about 30%, I believe. Yeah. But what I do notice is that it definitely brings up the saturation a little bit, just kind of makes things pop more, and definitely gives it that more cinematic look that I'm kind of going for. Now, circling back, I do have a noise reduction node that I place early in the node structure. And the reason for that, I find that it just gets a much better result because it's just getting a much cleaner signal. But I like to keep that turned off until I'm done with the grade because it eats up a lot of processing power and just really makes the computer drag. So I'm going to leave that clicked off, and we'll circle back at the end of the grade and fix some of the noise issues because I know there are definitely going to be some. All right, so let's start adjusting the exposure. I'm going to go to my primaries here. What I like to do is try to keep it where I'm not crushing my blacks and I'm not blowing out my highlights. So before, there's after. To adjust the contrast, I like to use the curves tool with the edible spline selected. And I find this is also helpful when I have areas that are peaking. If I pull up high soft, it'll actually keep it from peaking. And then I'll just kind of lower my highlights down a little, and I'll just pull it up like this. And what I'm looking for is to get some nice separation between the car and the background and all the different elements here. We'll increase the mid detail, and that will just kind of sharpen it up a little bit. So again, before and after. The way I have my saturation node set up is I have set my color space for HSL. I have the channels 1 and 3 deselected. HSV means hue, saturation, velocity. With only channel 2 selected, we're just going to be adjusting the saturation. What I like about this is that it gives me a little bit more control. There's not too much we need to do so far as saturation. It's really easy to go overboard. So what the gamma is doing is adjusting the saturation for the overall image, and the gain is adjusting the saturation for the most saturated parts. And already a lot of the contrast and the LUT itself is bringing in a lot of saturation. So it's, again, we don't want to go overboard with this. I think I'm pretty happy with that. Not going to go too crazy with that part. Next up, let's adjust the white balance. I find when I adjust the white balance a little bit later after I've done my exposure, contrast, saturation, it's a little bit easier because you can see those color casts become a lot more apparent. So if you do it a little too early on, you're probably just going to end up going back and adjusting it anyway. And I also have it set up on a parallel node, so it's just getting the direct signal from this primary node here. What I also like to do is with my qualifier tool selected, I'll right click and select show picker RGB value. So I'm just going to pick a section that, I want it just to stay pretty neutral. So there's before and after. somewhat color balanced. Still, it's going to need a few tweaks, but we're making some progress here. So now we're going to jump into the warp tool, and I really like this tool because it helps get rid of those annoying color casts. So we got this, I don't know where this is coming from. Maybe it's a reflection, noise, who knows, honestly. But what I'm going to do is just kind of click on that area here. I'm just going to pull down the saturation, and that just kind of evens everything out. So here's before, and here's after. Yeah, that's much better. Let's see what we got going on over here. Trying to go for a kind of a two-tone, duotone sort of look here. I don't want any colors kind of clashing. We can always bring saturation back, but this just helps balance everything out a bit. So here's before, and there's after. So we still got the car, it's nice and clean, but our background is a little more toned down, and this helps us focus more on the car and not the background. So before, after. Next up, we're going to go to the HDR color wheels. And what this is going to do is just kind of help me shape the image a little bit and just kind of give it a little more depth. So what we can do is we can lower our darks maybe a little bit or bring them up. It just, really depends. Actually, I might bring them up slightly. And again, it just depends what the image needs, but we'll kind of lower our darks here. Maybe open up our light part here. For, after, yeah, definitely is giving it a little bit more shape. And it's what's nice too is you can also you can start seeing a little bit more of the details. Kind of can soften some things. Oop, before, there's after. Before, after. Kind of liking that. And then I'm just going to take my global, just kind of bring it up just slightly. Yeah. Before, after. Yeah. So that just kind of smooth everything out a little bit. It just kind of makes it pop a little bit more. The next node before I go to my secondary grade, I just call the trim node. And this is just if I want to do any touch-ups. So maybe if I want to either lift or lower the shadows down, maybe tweak some of the highlights. Because I've kind of blended a few different things here. And so if I just want to make some final tweaks just to balance things out, that's what I'm going to do. Again, very subtle. I mean, that's kind of how I approach color grading is like it shouldn't be a big blasting shotgun approach. It should be very controlled, like a sniper, so to speak, but very subtle, small adjustments is what you want to do. Let's move on to the secondary grade. First note on my secondary grade, I'm going to clean up the blacks a little bit. So I'm going to hit the qualifier tool here, and we're just going to click and drag over a dark area of the image, hit Shift H, and we're just going to adjust it so it's only isolating just the really dark areas. It's very subtle, but one of those things that kind of builds on itself, I guess. And I just notice it definitely makes a difference in the long run. We'll go clean black and denoise. And then what I'll do is go to HDR, and I'm just going to go to global and pull the saturation down. So here's before, after, or you can kind of see, especially on the windshield, it's taking that kind of blue away and just makes the black more black, so it's not cross contaminated, so to speak. And we could probably adjust this a little bit more. So like everything, it's always going back and forth, just adjusting things until you get it to your liking. Good. Just a small little adjustment, but something I like to do. The next node, I'm going to isolate the car color itself. So I'm going to go back to the qualifier tool and again, just click and drag, hit Shift H, see what I got. And ooh, lucked out on that one. You don't always get this lucky. And I'm just going to make a little adjustments to the clean black and the denoise. Just that, so we don't get, it's nice and clean. And let's pull up the darks maybe a little bit. And for this one, I'm going to go do the opposite, where I'm going to go back to HDR and go to the global wheel here, and I'm actually going to pull the saturation up for after. We can go a little bit more than that. And you can see here, it just kind of fills in these kind of areas and just kind of gives it a little more depth. Yeah, I kind of like that. We could probably even increase just a little bit more there. Before, after. Yeah, I like that. Next up, I have a power window, which I'm going to create a vignette around the car. And this is what's going to really help isolate it and separate it from the background a little bit more. So let me just kind of soften that out. And this is one I'm definitely going to want to track because obviously it's moving. And I'm going to deselect perspective and rotate and just have these three on because I want it to look almost like a spotlight's on it, so to speak. And so I'm going to track forwards and backwards. Go back to where we were. So if you hit Option H, it'll make the power window visible or invisible. And that way you can see the changes and that way it doesn't get in the way. After I've done tracking the window, I'm going to go back and we're going to invert it. Go to HDR and pull the exposure down. I don't want to go too crazy or else it'll start looking, can I get that spotlight halo effect? We don't want that. We want it kind of subtle. So here's before and here's after. Would probably go a little bit more. And I think we could probably even pull these out just a little bit more. Here's before, after. Yeah, again, it's subtle, but when you compare it to the original, it definitely makes a difference. Now we're going to do the same thing, except this time we're going to apply the sharpen tool. And so again, I'm going to add a power window and we're going to track it in the same way. And let's deselect that. And then we'll go to the blur tab here. And we're just going to pull down the radius a little bit. As you can see, all of a sudden, notice the letters are a little more visible. We can maybe see a little bit more of the driver. There's before, there's after. Yeah, it definitely makes a difference. Moving on, the final nodes I have here are power windows as well. These are gradient windows. And what I like to use these for, if I want to make adjustments to the foreground, or maybe there's too much light coming in from a certain direction, I want to tone that down. Or if I want to bring in a little bit of light, this is really helpful for that. Oops. So this will be for the top. And so I can kind of see back here, I might want to maybe just darken this up just a little bit. We'll do the same. This is with this guy, I call my bottom G. And for this one, we'll do underneath here. What I like about that is it darkens the foreground in these areas. So here's with them both off. And here's with it on. So it's just, again, isolating the area of focus more. We're just about done here. My next node is I just call balance. And this is where I'll just make any final tweaks, adjustments after adding all these in. So again, maybe just looking at the waveform, maybe I want to raise my highlights up maybe a little bit. I could maybe, pull or maybe even lower the shadows. So not too many changes I'm going to make with that. For the final node, I'm going to add an S curve, and this is after the Rec 709 color space has been added. So what we're going to do is go to the curves window, and I'm just going to make 3 dots. Oh, let's deselect editable splines. I'm just going to make a little S curve, and this just kind of makes the whole image pop a little bit more. Before, and there's after. Yeah, much better. Circling back, now let's fix the noise. So how I approach noise reduction is I like to use the noise reduction in the effects tools, and I have it set for the frames either side. So that means like how many frames before and after the image it's calculating, to make adjustments. So I set it for 3, motion estimate type better and motion range medium. So it's not going overboard, but it does a good job. And what I'll do is I'll start with the temporal threshold. So this is looking at frames that are moving, and I'll move it over and then I'll pull back real quick to see if it actually made any changes. If it doesn't, then I don't really need to mess with it. If it does, I'll kind of go back to that, see where it starts changing, and then just pull back just a little bit. So the Luma is trying to find noise in the light and dark areas, and the Chroma is trying to find noise in the color itself. Not too much with the Chroma, but we'll just a little bit. And this is where you might want to zoom in a little bit and see what's going on. So here's before and after. See, definitely makes a difference. And we might even want to go back and sharpen it up a little bit. If you're still not satisfied, you can go to the spatial threshold, and this just looks at the single frame itself. Again, I'll just pull it over, pull it back. Yes, there's definitely some things we could fix there. Yeah, much better. And same thing in the Chroma. Not too much going on with the Chroma, but we'll pull it over just cause. So here's before, and here is after. Huge difference there. Wow, that definitely makes it look a lot better. Now you can add a little grain back in too if it just looks a little too smooth, but overall I'm pretty happy with this. And there you have it. That's how I color grade a motorsport video. Well, I hope you enjoyed this video, and if you did, go ahead and smash that like button and also hit the subscribe button to get more practical tips and tricks on how to color grade motorsport videos. My name is Andrew Cooper. I'll see you in the next video. Take care.